I watched their faces drop when I walked onto the stage at the National Marketing Awards. The creative director who'd stolen my campaign concept actually gasped, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his mouth. The CEO next to him whispered something frantically, but it was too late. I was already at the microphone, evidence in hand, ready to expose how the prestigious Apex agency had built their award-nominated campaign on stolen work, my work, and then had the audacity to invite me to help implement it as a low-paid contractor. 6 months earlier, I was sitting in a sunlit coffee shop, arranging my portfolio on the small, round table. The espresso machine hissed in the background as I checked the time on my phone. 9:52 a.m. 8 minutes early for my meeting with Apex Agency, one of the biggest names in the industry. After 3 years as a freelancer, this could be my breakthrough, a chance to pitch my concept to people who could take it national. I'd spent weeks refining my idea for the Stellar Tech campaign. It wasn't just good, it was innovative. The concept leveraged interactive storytelling across multiple platforms in a way that felt fresh, not forced. I'd watermarked every page of my presentation deck, dated my concept documents, and sent myself sealed copies via registered mail. Standard protection measures for freelancers, though I never really expected to need them. At precisely 10 a.m., Marcus Reeves strode through the door. Even if I hadn't seen his photo on the Apex website, I'd have known he was the creative director. He had that particular brand of confidence that comes from years of success in the creative industry. Designer glasses, perfectly disheveled hair, and a smile that seemed practiced rather than natural. James, right? Sorry to change our meeting spot from the office. He shook my hand firmly. Construction noise today. This is much better, anyway. I nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of nervousness in my stomach. No problem, thanks for taking the time. So, he said, settling into the chair opposite mine. Show me what you've got. I opened my presentation and began walking him through the Stellar Tech campaign. It was designed to position their new product line as both cutting-edge and accessible, a difficult balance in tech marketing. My approach centered on a narrative that evolved across platforms, with each element revealing a new chapter in the story while highlighting a different product feature. As I spoke, Marcus's expression shifted from polite interest to genuine engagement. He asked smart questions, made notes, and nodded appreciatively at several key points. By the time I finished, I felt confident. This was going well. This is interesting, Marcus said, closing his notebook. Very creative approach. Thank you, I replied, trying not to sound too eager. But, he continued, his voice cooling slightly, I'm not sure it's quite what Stellar is looking for right now. They're pretty conservative with their branding. My heart sank, but I kept my expression neutral. Rejection was part of the game. I appreciate the feedback, I said. If there's a direction you think would work better, I'd be happy to revise the concept. To be honest, Marcus said, checking his watch, we're exploring several different approaches with their team, but I'll definitely keep your information on file for future projects. He stood up, extending his hand again. You've got talent, James. Keep in touch. I watched him walk away, my presentation deck still open on the table. The standard rejection speech. I'd heard variations of it before. Disappointed but not devastated, I packed up my materials and finished my now cold coffee. 3 weeks later, I was scrolling through LinkedIn when I saw the announcement. Apex Agency wins Stellar Tech account with groundbreaking campaign approach. Curious, I clicked on the article. The first image made my stomach drop. It was a campaign mock-up that looked eerily familiar. Interactive storytelling across platforms, evolving narrative elements, even the color palette I'd proposed. The article quoted Marcus. We're taking Stellar in an innovative direction, breaking away from traditional tech marketing with a more immersive, story-driven approach. I stared at the screen, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. This wasn't just similar to my concept. It was my concept, repackaged with Apex branding. They'd taken my work, changed the font, removed my watermarks, and presented it as their own. I immediately pulled up my emails, finding the confirmation that I'd sent myself the registered package containing my original concept, dated weeks before my meeting with Marcus. I also had the email thread setting up our meeting, where I'd mentioned the general direction of my pitch. It wasn't definitive proof, but it established a timeline. My first instinct was to call Marcus and confront him, but I stopped myself. If Apex had stolen my concept so blatantly, a direct confrontation would just give them time to cover their tracks or prepare a defense. I needed to be smarter than that. Instead, I documented everything. Screenshots of their announcement, copies of my original work, the timeline of our meeting. Then I contacted a lawyer friend who specialized in intellectual property. Her advice was cautious but clear. I had a case, but going up against an agency like Apex would be difficult and expensive. The creative industry runs on ideas, she explained. Proving theft of a concept rather than coincidental similarity is notoriously hard. but keep gathering evidence. If they use more specific elements from your presentation, that strengthens your position. So I waited and watched. For 2 months, I monitored Apex's social media and press releases about the Stellar campaign. Each new piece they revealed contained elements from my original concept, sometimes with minimal changes. I documented every instance, building my case methodically. Then, on a Tuesday morning, I received an email that made me laugh out loud in disbelief. Dear James, we're reaching out because we've been impressed with your portfolio and believe you might be a good fit for some contract work on our Stellar Tech campaign. Apex Agency is looking for freelance support to implement various elements of this exciting project. If you're interested, please let me know your availability for a call to discuss rates and scope. The email was from Marcus's assistant. They had stolen my concept, won a major client with it, and now wanted to hire me at freelance rates to help execute my own idea. The audacity was almost impressive. This was the opportunity I'd been waiting for. I replied, expressing interest, and scheduled a call for the following day. During the call, I was careful to sound enthusiastic, but not desperate. Marcus's assistant outlined the campaign, my campaign, and explained they needed help with implementation across several platforms. The rate they offered was insultingly low, about a third of my standard fee. That's below my usual rate, I said calmly, but I'm very interested in the Stellar project. The concept seems familiar to my style. I'd be willing to work for that rate if there's potential for more involvement and proper credit on the campaign. We can't promise credit, she replied quickly. All work would be under Apex branding, but it's great exposure, and if things go well, there could be more opportunities. The classic exploitation pitch, work for less for exposure, with a vague promise of future benefits. But this time, I was accepting for very different reasons. I understand, I said. When would you need me to start? 2 days later, I was in the Apex office, signing their contractor agreement. I made sure to read every word before signing, particularly noting the confidentiality clauses. Nothing in the agreement prevented me from protecting my own intellectual property or reporting theft of work created prior to the contract. The Apex office was exactly what you'd expect from a successful agency. Open concept, designer furniture, awards displayed prominently in glass cases. As Marcus's assistant led me through the space, I noticed the Stellar campaign materials pinned to boards in their project room. My work, with minor alterations, displayed proudly as their creative breakthrough. Marcus wants to meet with you briefly before you get started, she said, leading me toward a corner office. Marcus looked up from his desk when we entered, his expression changing subtly when he recognized me. There was a flicker of something, concern perhaps, before his professional smile took over. James, good to see you again, he said, standing to shake my hand. I didn't realize you were the freelancer we brought on. Small world? I replied with a smile that matched his for insincerity. I was excited to see the direction you took with Stellar. Very innovative. His eyes narrowed slightly, trying to detect any sarcasm in my tone, but I kept my expression pleasant and professional. Yes, well, the client loves it, he said. They're even talking about submitting it for the National Marketing Awards next month. That's impressive, I said. I'm looking forward to contributing to its success. For the next 4 weeks, I worked diligently on implementing various elements of the campaign. I was careful to do quality work. This wasn't about sabotage. I needed access and information more than I needed petty revenge. During this time, I gathered more evidence. I had access to internal documents now, including early drafts of the campaign that were dated after my meeting with Marcus, but contained my concepts. I found presentation decks prepared for the client that used language nearly identical to what I'd used in my pitch. Most damning of all, I discovered an email chain where Marcus instructed his team to rework the freelancer's concept and make it ours, with a timestamp just 2 days after our coffee shop meeting. I also learned that the campaign had indeed been nominated for a National Marketing Award, one of the industry's most prestigious recognitions. The ceremony was scheduled for next month, and Apex was confident they would win. Marcus had already been quoted in industry publications talking about the groundbreaking creative direction he'd developed for Stellar. As my contract was nearing its end, I was called into a meeting with Marcus and the account director for Stellar. They seemed pleased with my work. We're very happy with how you've executed our vision, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. The client is thrilled with the results so far. Thank you, I replied. It's been interesting working on the concept. In fact, the account director added, we're considering extending your contract for another month. Same terms, of course. Same terrible rate, same lack of credit, Same exploitation. I smiled. I'd be interested in continuing, I said, especially with the awards coming up. It must be exciting to have the campaign nominated. Marcus nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. Yes, it's a significant recognition. The whole agency will be attending the ceremony. It's quite an honor just to be nominated. I can imagine, I said. Will the Stellar client be there as well? Of course, the account director replied. They're flying in their entire marketing team. It's a big deal for them too. Perfect. All the players would be in one room. I signed the contract extension and continued my work, all while finalizing my preparation. I compiled my evidence into a clear, concise presentation and sent a confidential email to the awards committee, outlining my concerns about the nomination's validity. I didn't ask them to disqualify Apex. I simply requested 5 minutes to address the audience before the award in that category was announced. My request was unusual, but the committee chair was intrigued enough by what I shared to grant it. She assured me that only she and 2 other committee members knew about this arrangement, and it would not appear in any printed program. The night of the awards ceremony arrived. I dressed carefully in my best suit, making sure I looked every bit the professional. In my briefcase, I carried copies of my evidence, original concept documents, emails, the registered mail receipt, and screenshots of Apex's internal communications about my work. The venue was elegant, a grand hotel ballroom filled with round tables where agencies and clients mingled over dinner before the awards presentation. I spotted the Apex table near the front, Marcus and his team, along with several people I recognized as Stellar executives from their website photos. I took my seat at a table near the back, watching as the ceremony began. Awards were presented in various categories, with agencies celebrating each win with cheers and applause. The atmosphere was festive and competitive. This was where reputations were made and industry status confirmed. As the category for Best Integrated Campaign approached, I felt a strange calm. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth and professional integrity. Just before the category was announced, the committee chair took the microphone. Before we move to our next award, we have a brief special presentation. I'd like to invite James Porter to the stage. There was polite, confused applause as I made my way to the stage. As I passed the Apex table, I saw Marcus's expression change from confusion to recognition to alarm in the space of seconds. He leaned over to whisper something to the CEO beside him. I reached the podium and placed my materials on it, taking a moment to look out at the audience. The room was filled with the industry's top professionals, people who understood the value of creative work and the importance of integrity. Good evening, I began. My name is James Porter. I'm a freelance marketing strategist, and until last week, I was a contractor working for Apex Agency on the Stellar Tech campaign, a campaign that's nominated tonight for Best Integrated Campaign. I paused, noting how Marcus was now frantically whispering to his colleagues. I'm here because that campaign, the innovative storytelling approach, the cross-platform integration, the core creative concept, was originally my work. 6 months ago, I pitched this concept to Apex in detail. They declined it, only to repurpose it weeks later as their own creation. A murmur ran through the audience. I continued calmly. I have evidence to support this claim, I said, holding up my documents. Original concept papers with dates and watermarks, emails establishing the timeline, even internal Apex communications explicitly discussing how to rework the freelancer's concept and make it ours. I projected several key documents onto the screen behind me. The room grew quieter as people began to understand what they were seeing. What's most remarkable is that after stealing my concept, Apex hired me as a low-paid contractor to help implement it, never acknowledging that they were asking me to execute my own stolen idea. I looked directly at the Stellar executives, who were now staring at Marcus with expressions ranging from confusion to anger. I'm not here seeking damages or to disrupt this ceremony. I'm here because our industry is built on creative integrity. When agencies claim others' work as their own, they undermine the trust that clients place in us and devalue the real innovation that drives our field forward. I gathered my materials. Copies of all this evidence have been provided to the awards committee and to the Stellar Tech executive team. Thank you for your attention. As I walked off the stage, the room erupted in whispered conversations. I returned to my seat, heart pounding but head held high. From across the room, I could see the Stellar CMO engaged in what appeared to be a heated discussion with Marcus and the Apex CEO. When the time came to announce the Best Integrated Campaign Award, the presenter seemed slightly flustered. In light of recent information, the committee has decided to withhold this award pending further review. More murmurs filled the room. I remained in my seat as the ceremony continued, but the damage was done. During the reception that followed, several people approached me, some offering support, others asking for more details, a few warning me about potential legal consequences. The Stellar executives were noticeably absent from the reception, as was most of the Apex team. The next morning, my phone began ringing early. First, it was a journalist from a marketing industry publication asking for comment on the Apex scandal. Then another, and another. By noon, the story had spread throughout the industry. Apex agency accused of concept theft at national awards ceremony. I gave only one interview to the most reputable industry journal, where I calmly presented my evidence without embellishment or accusation. I didn't need to editorialize. The facts spoke for themselves. 2 days later, Stellar Tech announced they were reviewing their relationship with Apex Agency. A week after that came the press release. Stellar was terminating their contract due to concerns about creative attribution and professional ethics. The fallout for Apex was swift and severe. Beyond losing Stellar, their reputation took a significant hit. Several other clients initiated reviews of their contracts. Marcus Reeves resigned to pursue other opportunities. The agency issued a carefully worded statement about miscommunication and oversight in crediting external contributions, corporate speak for "we got caught." As for me, the exposure had an unexpected benefit. My phone started ringing with potential clients, people who respected how I'd handled the situation and wanted to work with someone who valued creative integrity. Within 2 months, I had more work than I could handle, including a direct contract with Stellar Tech to develop new campaigns. 6 months after the awards ceremony, I was having coffee in the same shop where I'd first met with Marcus. My business had transformed. I'd hired 2 junior creatives to help with the workload and moved into a small but proper office space. I was no longer scrambling for projects or accepting below-market rates. As I sat there, reviewing concepts for a new client, a notification popped up on my phone. It was an announcement for the upcoming National Marketing Awards. This year, I was on the list of nominees for Independent Professional of the Year. I smiled, closed the notification, and returned to my work. The coffee shop looked the same. The espresso machine still hissed in the background, but everything else had changed. I had stood up for my work, for my value, and for the principles of our industry. In doing so, I hadn't just recovered what was stolen from me. I discovered a stronger version of myself, one who wouldn't be underestimated again. The award nomination was nice, but it wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was sitting in that coffee shop, not as a desperate freelancer hoping for approval, but as a respected professional, secure in my own worth. That was the real victory, one that couldn't be stolen, diminished, or taken away.